Welcome to the Bonus XP podcast, a podcast all about video games from a PlayStation perspective, Xbox and PC perspective. I'm your host, Luke Morgan. This is episode 3. Joining me today is Griner.
Hey.
And Conan.
What up, Doug?
How are we today, guys?
Pretty good. Can't complain.
Yeah. What have you been playing?
I have finally got around to playing Sekiro. So I love FromSoft games, but I'm a stingy bastard and could never shell out the full amount for Sekiro. So it went on sale in the last Steam sale and I picked it up.
How much did you get it
for? $35 or something.
You enjoying it?
Yeah, I like it. It's a lot harder than Souls games because you can't just like grind out a bunch of XP and out level everything. Like all your progression's tied to defeating difficult bosses. And I felt like I'm like 3 bosses in and I feel like I've fought each of them like 20 times, not 20, 200 times before I even work it out. But anyway, I'm getting there.
Right on.
Conan, you're a big Sekiro fan, aren't you?
Loved it. Finished it, I think, 3 times, back to back to back. And I just have 1 trophy left to go when I want to play it through a 4th.
Where do you rank it with the other FromSoft games?
I don't know, 3 or 4. I think Bloodborne's the best. Then I'd probably go the original Dark Souls. And then it would be either Dark Souls 3 or Sekiro. Probably Sekiro just because it's different. It's great. Like all From Software games, like 10 out of 10. It's hard to compare perfection.
So, Grano, I'll get your thoughts in a second. This is a tangent. We had an unreleased episode back when we were practicing podcasts about the top 10 games of the decade. How is Bloodborne your favorite FromSoft game if Dark Souls is the best game of the decade?
His favorite and best are 2 vastly different concepts.
No.
Yeah, they are. Also, I don't know why you're trying to open this beef at the beginning of a podcast.
Because
podcasts that we never released.
Because we argued for about 3 hours.
Still salty, that's why.
Dark Souls was better than The Last of Us.
Like my favorite films
was Bloodborne even in our top 10?
I think we intentionally left it out because we didn't want to have too many From games in there. And we sort of knew Dark Souls was going to be in there. So it's like, we can't just have Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro.
You know what? We're going to have to release this unreleased hidden audio footage. So then when I call you out on this sort of crap, everyone knows what we're talking about in the future. But
anyone out there,
we can release it.
I want people to understand. Favorite and best are vastly different. The Godfather and Citizen Kane are probably the best films ever made. Not my favorite films.
So wait, is Bloodborne's your favorite, but you don't think it's the best? Or it's the best, but not your favorite?
Oh, that's probably both. I think, do we really need to get into that?
Let's just get into it, whatever.
I think best can incorporate what it did at the time for gaming, which is where I think we landed on with Dark Souls when we were talking about it.
Yeah, exactly, because that was my whole argument that Demon Souls actually did Dark Souls before Dark Souls, but you guys didn't play it, so you guys were technically wrong. Yeah. But
I think, Dark Souls had a much bigger impact than Bloodborne did on the game. And it, as we said, it redefined the genre. So it's better for that reason. Even if Bloodborne is probably its perfected genre, or the style that From goes for, it's perfected it there. What Dark Souls did was more important. Anyway, moving on. I've been playing Mirror's Edge again because I tried to get into Mirror's Edge Catalyst. And I was like, this is clunky and weird. And I feel like it's lost some of the charm. So I went back into that and about halfway through. And I'm kind of like, I remember why I traded this game in years and years and years ago, but it's still kind of fun. Did you guys ever play Mirror's Edge?
I did. I really liked it. Like, it's fun. I have a few games where it's just like, I feel like I could go back to that and just play it for a couple of hours, have fun with it, and then be done with it. Like I do. I play through the original Portal every now and then.
Yep.
I play through bits of Half-Life 2 every now and then. And I feel like Mirror's Edge is one of those games where there's just a few sections where it's like, I feel like just playing that. And then that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mirror's Edge, that's a dig into the past, man. I haven't heard about that game in a while. Mirror's Edge is like this weird story for me where I seem to have dial-up internet way after dial-up internet was a thing, like just because I lived on a rural property, so I had dial-up for a long time. And I remember Mirror's Edge was one of the first demos I had ever downloaded, because I think it was only something like 1.2 gig, and it was something we could do when we finally had like 10 gig a month. And I was like, yes.
It took 6 days.
It did. I was like, I'm going to download Mirror's Edge demo that lasted for 10 minutes. And I played the hell out of that demo, and I thought it was fun. Like, I was like, wow, this is so cool. And the very like sterile, bright, vibrant colors was different than all the brown and gray that was everywhere in games around that sort of 2006, 2007 era.
Yeah, for sure.
Never played the full game. And yeah, like, because Catalyst was the next one. There wasn't like a 2 and then a Catalyst was there. It was just...
No, so Catalyst, and I didn't realize this, Catalyst is actually like a reimagining. It's not a sequel. It's a sort of like a reboot, which I didn't really think the original game needed a reboot, but I guess it did just kind of die quietly and didn't get touched for a while.
Yep. True.
Like a lot of EA franchises.
Yeah, which is a shame, because that, I remember getting Mirror's Edge. It was the same year that Dead Space came out, and it was a really good time for EA. Like, they were just making good games, and they were taking sort of risks. Like, Mirror's Edge it's kind of a risky concept, right? It's like, it's first-person free running. It's not a big thing. It's kind of hard to make a whole game about that, but they took these chances, and in some things it really paid off. And it was a lot of fun. I think it was a game that had really cool style. And I don't know, Catalyst, I'm trying to get into Catalyst, and like, they've sacrificed a lot of that for open world, things you need in a game in 2021.
Did Catalyst have like a multiplayer aspect to it?
I assume so.
I just have a memory.
I
I don't know why. I think they try to introduce that in there somehow, which is just EA for you, sort of thing. But
yeah, is there a game they've made that hasn't had an online?
Which anyway, transitioning, segueing. Eat Fresh,
sponsored by Subway.
Eat Fresh, segue. So we're going to discuss some of the top gaming news for the last fortnight. Just go through and get your thoughts, because we don't really talk much about games during the week. We work and have kids, so this is sort of our only time to get into some of the details. So I want to get your thoughts on some stuff. And since we're bringing up EA and killing franchises and adding multiplayer and everything like that, there's a rumor going around about Dead Space. Dead Space getting a remake. From the first one, it sounds like just a reboot of the franchise. Obviously, with Dead Space, they sort of went this whole direction with multiplayer and got away from that horror vibe. All I remember from 3, which I didn't play, but like, bright snow cover and everything like that with multiplayer, 2-player co-op. There's an article that comes to us by way of Gamatsu that says Dead Space revival in development at Motive. EA will announce a Dead Space revival during its EA Play live digital event on July 22nd, which is coming up tomorrow morning here in Australia, actually. So according to VentureBeat writer Jeff Grubb in the latest GamesBeat Decides podcast, who says that basically, it's a remake of the first one. It's not going to be a continuation or anything like that. They've realized the mistakes that they've made and just going and with a brand new refresh, hopefully, like, I don't know, getting rid of that multiplayer stuff and just going to where it was originally and what made the original Dead Space so great. So before we get into that news, I'll just get what's your guys' thoughts on Dead Space or experience with it? I'll start with you, Grana. Did you ever play it?
Yeah, loved Dead Space 1 and 2. I thought they're both really good.
Yep.
I'm not normally into horror games. Like, I don't know, I scare easy, I guess, but there's something really fun about Dead Space. And I really loved, they sort of turned it on their head. You want to slice off the limbs. You don't want to necessarily go for headshots. They had these really creative weapons, even though the starting pistol was the best gun in the whole game.
Correct.
Yeah. Conan, your experience with Dead Space?
Yeah, I adored it. I remember it in school. It was just an exciting time. And me and a friend were like, Far Cry 2 and Dead Space are coming out. These are going to be the 2 best games ever made. We were so excited. And they were both phenomenal games. I think they lived up to the hype. Like, I didn't realize it at the time, but Dead Space is like, or was a huge franchise. Like, it was a really big thing. Everyone was playing it. Everyone bought it. Like, it was very successful.
Yeah.
And yeah, Sorry, Granny, you have something to say?
Oh no. I wasn't going to interrupt you.
Oh, sorry. It looked like anyway. Yeah, I really got into it. Like, finished it a bunch. Loved Dead Space 2. I think it did that. It did a great thing where it combined horror and action really well. So even though it was a survival horror game through and through, it never delved into like the Outlast territory where it was just too kind of scary and really relying on that. It had a lot of just you could get into it and you could bear it. And then Dead Space 3 came out, and I was really bummed out because they got John Carpenter in, who's a big video game guy now, and he like helped write the ideas and stuff. And that's why it's kind of got that Snow vibe, because it's very much paying homage to
like the thing.
Playing homage, yeah, it's really like playing on that. And I respect what they did. They tried to go, instead of from the dark space, they went to bright space. And so it's cool, but it sacrificed all the horror in number 3. It just became a very generic action game.
And they introduced multiplayer. Like, that's the thing. Like, it was
two survival horror game with 2 people.
Two horror suits. And that's the thing. Like, it did draw that line of action and horror, because as scary as it was sort of a thing as well. You wanted to face some of the necromorphs and cut off their limbs in different ways and have them crawl towards you and then shoot off this arm. And it was fun to kill them, So it's not like that sort of game that you don't want to encounter like any enemies or anything like that. Before I go to you, Grana, I'll just say my experience with Dead Space was very much, I never played through the whole game. I maybe made like the first 2 hours or so. I'm a bit of a chicken when it comes to horror games. But when Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2 came out, it was like this thing. I remember at that time going to one of my friend's house from high school, we had just gotten like really good gaming headsets for the first time, where we spent all of our money on this like $400 Turtle Beach headset. And it was basically just this fun thing of like, put this on, crank the volume up to the highest, and see how many jump scares like it gets you like in the first hour. And we're like, oh my God. And that's basically my memory of Dead Space, is playing through that, like the opening, and giving it to other people and watching them freak out when I knew they would freak out when the wheelchairs sliding out in the dark and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, never played through them. And I know that, like, I don't know too much about 2. Like, Dead Space 1 seems really popular, but 2 was good as well, and obviously liked by fans. Did you guys like 2 more than 1, or is it just more of the same sort of thing?
From what I gathered, 2 was considered a better game. I much preferred number 1. I think number 2, it can be defined pretty much by number 1. The stomping action was really slow and cumbersome, but it was really brutal. And you felt like you were this clunky engineer who's just like, I don't know, I've got to stomp on aliens' heads. Whereas in number 2, it was very fast. Like, you could just spam the stomp, and it was really rapid.
Yeah.
And you could tell they were like, okay, we need to make it more smooth action. We need to lean into that a bit more. And I think that's why it did really well, and people liked it, because it did feel smoother. But for me, the first game having that clunky feeling really amplified the whole sense that you're a fish out of water. You're not prepared for this, so you shouldn't be a great warrior. Yeah.
Number 1, like, I liked the setting better, I think. Like, number 1's just you're on this big ass ship, right? Like, navigating your way around that. Whereas number 2 takes you out into the world a bit more. There is that cool scene with the eyeball in number 2. I'll never forget that.
Yeah, number 2, it ups the gore.
Yeah,
and it did have that awesome scene where you like fly through space back towards the city. That was really cool. And you kind of got to dodge bits of like rubble and stuff. That was really
cool. And stuff. Yeah,
that was cool.
So, getting into the actual news item, then, a remake of the original. Obviously, not continuing the series with was it Isaac? His name, the character in the first one?
Yeah, Isaac Clarke.
Yeah, Isaac Clarke. I feel like that's
distant cousin of mine.
Yeah. How do you guys feel about that? Is it the right decision for EA? And obviously, if they go a single player route with this and try and go back to its roots, is a remake the best idea for this franchise? I'll start with you, Grana.
It's fine. I'm just happy for them to dig this franchise up and give it another life, I guess. I'm hoping if this does well, they'll actually put some effort into it. Like, it's a crime what happened with Dead Space. Like,
yeah,
there's all these reports of them shutting down Visceral Games, who made these games, because people weren't interested in single player games anymore, or so EA thought. But
Such nonsense.
and like since then, there's been a real renaissance. I don't know. There's been a big jump, and people are really into single player games again. I feel like it's like there probably was a lull there for a while, but people are really back into single player games, I think, and I think they've just missed that, and I think that's what they're trying to get back to.
And the thing, even like EA, you can tell is sort of caught on to that fact that people keep voting us the worst company in the world, like the worst every year. And then they release something like Jedi Fallen Order, which is all single player. It does good numbers. Critically, it's well received, and people are a lot more receptive to EA and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully, Conan, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's in their DNA. Like they made really great single player games for a long time, and then they spent 10 years, they just flipped that on their head. We're living in a time of post Resident Evil remakes where these games that are super loved by fans have been remade in a really good way. They haven't just been polished up, they've actually been like redesigned and remade for a modern audience. And they've done really well. And they've introduced a whole new sort of generation into this whole, these are the games that people were loving 10, 15 years ago. I can love them too now because they're not clunky. So I'm all for it for that. I'm really, if they do a good job, which I think they sort of will, because they do know that it's such a valuable like quantity that they're not just going to, half-ass it and then go leave it. They might, you're right, but I'm hoping they would.
They killed Visceral, like they shut them down.
They did, but I feel like it's the kind of thing that it wouldn't be too much effort to do, and it would be a guaranteed money maker in a lot of ways, and it would get back in people's good graces. So I don't know. I feel like there's been enough time for them to realize, hey, we can't just half-ass this because people aren't going to want that. They've already sort of pissed at us. So we need to actually start earning some respect again.
And so you guys agree like a remake would be a better idea than a reboot? Like just do like the Resident Evil treatment of basically remaking it, but continuing the same plot and like same characters as the first game? Or do you think it should be a reboot, maybe change up a few things from the first, but like a similar sort of origin? Conan.
Well, I guess two things. Obviously, Glenn Schofield's left, and sort of the man behind the game is no longer for them. So I kind of admire them for not wanting to remake it, and not being like, this is just Dead Space remade again. And I feel like that would reek of more of a cash grab than just a. So like a reboot would reek of a cash grab more than a remake. I think by just remaking the original property,
really,
that's a bit more. I think so, because if they try to reboot it and they don't have the original people behind it, they are more like that's them saying, hey, we want to keep this property that we know is valuable, but we don't. It's not a thing that we really care about. We don't love it that much. We don't have the original people who did it. Yeah. Whereas I think just a remake of it makes them money. They don't have to commit to this huge new like AAA franchise title to be making for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
I think this is the gateway, right? Like they remake this game, they hopefully do a good job at it. It's received well, people enjoy it, and they're like, okay, let's dedicate a studio, let's make Dead Space 4 or whatever, Dead Space Infinity, whatever they want to call it, and let's go from there. Like this is how they get their foot back in the Dead Space door and see if people actually want this game, see if they can have the chops to pull it off.
Yeah,
and it's going to sell. Either way, people are probably going to buy it, pre-order it, whatever.
And that's the thing. Like, I think not only is single player back in vogue, but horror games definitely are. Like, Resident Evil sells great every year when they come out. It's like, it's a popular thing again, I think, in gaming. So you mentioned Infinity, which is a good segue or subway or whatever you want to use into the next news item.
They're bad segues when you point them out.
Oh, they are, aren't they?
Yeah.
Whoops. Well, you watch out for the next one. It's going to be subtle. You won't even know it hit you. So basically, Ubisoft, there was a lot of rumors about this, and they have basically come out and confirmed that moving forward, they're going to start working on a game called Assassin's Creed Infinity, which will be taking what we know and love about the Assassin's Creed games and burning them at the stake and just doing a whole different thing to make it a games as a service, live sort of money making. Obviously, they've already got money making things in that game with loot boxes and XP boosts and stuff like that, which I unashamedly purchase every time because I don't like to grind. But I'll get your thoughts on Assassin's Creed in general. Like, are you guys jaded fans? You're not into this series anymore, are you? Or were you ever into Assassin's Creed? Grant, I'll start with you.
I was never that into it. I enjoyed Brotherhood, and I think like one other one that came after that. But I don't know. I feel like that's a really cliche. Like, oh, I liked Assassin's Creed when it was Brotherhood, but everybody likes that, right? Like,
when
but
it was Ezio.
I would be interested in what they're doing because I think Ubisoft is one of the few people to be trusted with this kind of thing.
Really?
Anyway, well, yeah.
Okay.
Just the way they've handled Siege and a few other games over the years, I feel like maybe they can pull it off with this.
It's a good point. Conan, Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, I'll go you one better. I'm a true AC hipster. I liked it when it was Altair and Altair only.
Just the first one?
Just the first one.
Nobody liked the first one though.
Everyone loved
the first one when it was out.
All right.
First one was great. I spent a lot of hours in that game. I nearly collected all the flags for some reason. Look,
no
first
reward.
One was great.
There was no reward for that. It was just
there was an achievement at the end. That's worth it, I guess.
A lot of flags.
I was a fan of the first three, so 1, 2, and then Brotherhood, and then I dropped off after that. I think Brotherhood just sort of, that's where to me I was like, okay, I can see that it's starting to get pretty samey, and it was fairly easy and just it's sort of rehashing this ground. So I've been pretty disillusioned with them. I don't hate it anymore. I just like Assassin's Creed is like FIFA. It comes out every year, and I don't care for it. It's just not my thing.
What was the last one you played?
For me, it would have been Brotherhood, actually.
Oh, really? You didn't finish like Desmond's trilogy with 3 or anything like that?
Desmond's, the whole real world story in those games is the stupidest thing I have ever partaken in.
I have a soft spot for it, though. I kind of like was always intrigued by it. And
this is my this is a stress ball. What? Wow, it's so convoluted.
It is. It's real dumb, but I kind of like dumb stuff sometimes.
It was different. Like in the first one, like it was different to go to that modern thing and be like, what? This is kind of cool. And it got really bad. And obviously there's a bunch of Assassin's Creed entries where they completely like there's a modern thing about 3 minutes. They're like, hey there, you're going into a virtual reality situation. And then like you play the rest of the game as that character. You never go back to that modern setting. Yeah. With Valhalla, they focused more on the modern setting. They got one of the original writers, I'm forgetting his name now, Andrew McDermott, I think, from the original trilogy, like of Brotherhood and everything. He came back, so there was a much more stronger focus on the modern story. He's left Ubisoft now, so I don't know what that means for the next one again. But I don't know. Like, Conan, how do you feel about this going as like a games as a service sort of way?
Like, games as a service, I think I don't like it, but it's the way of the world. It's the way it's going. I think it was just I think it was Konami just announced the other day that PES is now becoming eSoccer, and it's just an online service they do. And like this is just what these, and it's kind of what FIFA and all those sports games should have done a few years ago. Instead of releasing FIFA 19, 20, 21, just make it FIFA, and each year you get like an update or patches and things change around. And it's just it's a constant growing service. That makes more sense.
Yeah, and
I think it's just the way that it's just the way the industry is going. It's the way that companies are able to make games. It's the way that in a MOBA world where you've got like a battle royale world where you've got the games like Fortnite making more money than any other company in a month.
Yeah,
like games as a service is where money's made, and it's just how it functions. And I mean, look, granted, like you're saying, EA is one of the companies that was probably good at this. So, Ubisoft. I trust them to actually do it. I think they'll be okay at it. And Assassin's Creed Brotherhood multiplayer was super, super fun. So if they kind of lean into a lot of that stuff, I'd be in for that.
I love that.
It was real cool. So if there's a bigger focus on that, I would actually consider picking that up and giving it a go. Because I'm probably more interested in that than playing through those mammoth RPGs that they're sort of leaning into now of 150 hours. So I just don't have time for that.
I saw people out there talking about it being like Hitman, right? Like where you have, maybe they'll probably have a hub world or something like that, but they give you a location, you go there and you do a bunch of missions or whatever. Like I think Assassin's Creed could fit really well into that model. And if you're going to release one every year, you might as well make it a live service. Like, I think if they're going to release it every year anyway, it should be a live service. Like 100% FIFA should be like this. PES obviously is going that way. If you're going to release a game every year, make it a live service. Make people buy a battle pass, and that gets them access to the next map rather than charging $100 every year.
Yeah, but I guess don't you sort of like, I don't know. Obviously, they could always do stuff where it's a big update. Like, well, now you're switching perspectives to like a feudal Japan Assassin's Creed, but doesn't it kind of take
That's the
away
dream.
from that whole thing, though? If it's a game as a service, don't they just keep adding to that world? It's not like it's going to completely change the year and time and characters in it and everything like that.
No, well, the way I envision it is like the real world is where the hub,
The hub.
and you go in, and then you go into feudal Japan, you go into Viking land, you go into the Emu War in Australia. Like, you go to these different locations, do your missions, have your story, and then I don't know, they could have the assassinations like they have in Hitman. Like, go take out this character who's in this part of the map this week, and earn 7 coins that go towards your battle pass.
And
Like, seems easy as to monetize to me.
the Great Emu War of 1917.
It's a good time.
Conan, what were you going to say?
I think that's probably a better product in the end now, because they've been making the same Assassin's Creed games constantly until they did Origins, and then they just made Origins 2 more times in different settings. Like, I don't think the games they make are these huge, like, wow, this is a huge event that we need to see and get, and everything's different, because they're not that different. They are sort of doing very similar things. Okay, how can we make this slightly better, slightly new, slightly more polished this year? So they're already they're already doing that. So I don't think it's going to detract because they make that.
But so, like my perspective. So I was always a fan of Assassin's Creed. I've played basically all of them. I didn't finish Origins or Odyssey, but loved Valhalla. We've gone over this a bunch of times. I really loved that game, and that reignited my love for Assassin's Creed.
I have a question for you after this.
Yeah. Okay. After like this comment, or
yeah, when you're done, I'll ask you.
Okay. And I don't know. Like, I feel like over the years, Ubisoft has been going this way, or starting to dip their toe into this sort of thing, where, like, I know in Valhalla they had like the Yule festival, and like they have these timed events, around Christmas. They do these things, but that's not something that ever drew my attention. To like, I was never like, oh, I got to get in for that event this weekend. And I like Hitman, but I never did any of the ones that were like, oh, this assassination's this weekend. For some reason, it never drew my attention. I never wanted to get into that. I wanted to play the campaign and be done. And I'm similar to like that with Valhalla, and that's why I bought the stuff to not have to grind, so I could finish it in 50 hours instead of 150 hours. I just wanted to play the story. I liked the characters, and I was out. And all the extra stuff that they try and make you buy, like where they're like, hey, you can make your ship have a unicorn on the front, and it like has rainbow trails behind it. I don't want that. I don't want that in my Viking simulator. I don't want to be able to ride like a unicorn around the land in Odyssey. I don't like that sort of stuff. And if it goes this game's a service where if there's multiplayer involved and there's other people, man, I don't want to be pretending I'm bloody Ragnar from Vikings and then have someone run me over with their unicorn mount or something like that. It's something I worry about. And I think it's unlike something like Siege, where it's improving on what they're doing with multiplayer or anything like that, or Ghost Recon. Assassin's Creed has very much been a single player game, and it's always, obviously Brotherhood had a dope ass multiplayer as well, but it's not known for multiplayer. People don't love Assassin's Creed because it's multiplayer, which is non-existent anymore. They love it because it's a single player open world game, and I think this is a step away from that formula.
Yes, but also GTA was a single player game, and now when we haven't had a new GTA in
it's all GTAs now is online.
2 generations, right? I think, I don't know. Do you guys think that you're in the minority, being like, I play Assassin's Creed just for the single player experience?
Probably.
But
yeah. I know if I was a shareholder for Ubisoft, I'd be like, hell yeah, do it as a games of service, because as a corporation, they're successful and they make way more money than a single player game will ever make. Like, like you said earlier, Fortnite makes more money in one day than a big AAA game will make, like in its history.
Yeah.
You know, like in a week, Fortnite will make more money than The Last of Us 2 did.
Yep.
Like ever. Like it's just a
It's
fact.
upsetting.
And it's
I
that
think
every
I think
week.
you're overestimating how much they make, but they make a lot of money. But I think
They make
I
a
think
lot
you're
of
still
money.
gonna get. I think you're still gonna get the experience you want, but the dude who wants to have a unicorn on the front of his ship is gonna get the experience he wants as well. Like I think this
Yeah.
is just gonna give everyone. It's not gonna give everyone everything they want, but you know what I mean. Like I think you'll still be able to play your single player experience. Oh, they've released the new expansion that has the feudal Japan map. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to do the missions. I'm going to play through the story, get that experience. And then the guy who's been collecting flags since day one and wants to have a unicorn hat can go and do that. Like, I don't think it's going to change to a multiplayer experience. I don't think you're going to lose out on anything by someone else having rainbows.
I read an interesting article. Somebody was talking about how they'd finished all the RPG ones, and they're like, those games are sort of designed that you, at the end, you are so powerful and you've bought all these upgrades and you've grinded to get to the end, and then to sort of have to get a new game the next year and start again, they kind of found that a bit tiresome. Like this is a way of end game content, which is pretty interesting to look at. Like you spend 200 hours in Valhalla and you've got a super buff dude. It's like, okay, you can do something with that now instead of just restarting the game as, I don't know, weak Ragnar.
And they can still have, you've got to go into this assassination with these 3 pieces of gear. Like you don't get to have all your overpowered stuff. Like they can still have experiences like that for the people that want that.
Yeah, I don't see a future where we have Assassin's Creed Infinity and like Assassin's Creed Samurai or whatever. Like, you know, we don't have like them two coexist. Like it won't be a standalone game. Like you said, it'll be an expansion in Assassin's Creed Infinity. And I don't know if that cheapens the experience or if it's like, well, it's the same assets used, but now I've got this new fresh coat of paint on it. Well, I want a game that's dedicated to that and a world that's built for that story and like to explore that world. And I don't think they coexist. I don't think if Infinity's making that much money, they're going to also put money into this project to do that. So one of them has to suffer.
No, I don't. I just don't agree. Like adding that new map is going to take less resources because they're not worried about the trappings around it. They're not worried about the modern world stuff. That's the stuff that's consistent. That's the stuff that stays between games. That's your hub world. All they're worried about is creating you a really cool samurai experience in feudal Japan. So they create that world and you go into it through the hub. Sure, you buy it as a battle pass or whatever, but I still think I still think they could do this where you get those cool stories that you want to have. They may not be 150 hours long. They might be 75 hours long. And there might be 15 of them, but...
Yeah, maybe. But like, honestly, if I want just an expansion about feudal Japan, like I'm going to play Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, which, getting into our next topic.
Oh, damn. What a sandwich.
That segue hit me like a train in a subway.
Ghost of Tsushima's Director's Cut is arriving on PS5 and PS4 consoles on August 20th. So originally this sort of expansion was codenamed like Ghost of Ikishima or somehow you pronounce that, because that's the island you go to in this expansion pack. Now, there's been a lot of discourse online about, you know, charging for a director's cut upgrade and Sony's paying a premium dollar to do that. I think it's a bit unfair though, because it's not like a next gen upgrade. They've already done a next gen update. If you play on PS5, you get it in 60 frames a second. Or this one, they're adding new features, obviously taking advantage of the DualSense controller, haptic feedback, that sort of stuff. More like a 4K 60 frames a second sort of mode, and a story expansion, like a few hours. They released a trailer today that I haven't checked out yet, but it is a full-sized story expansion, apparently 15 to 20 hours. You go to a new island. There's like, it's a meaty upgrade. So I don't think people complain about paying an extra $20 or $30 for this upgrade is like justified, because I don't know, they released free multiplayer for this game, which apparently Ghost of Tsushima Legends is great. They've done that. They did the free update. So for all the people saying that it's a rip-off that Sony's charging $30, shut up, because This is a good deal. And
Don't criticize Sony.
Ghost of Tsushima is one of the best games of last year, arguably one of the best games if Last of Us 2 didn't come out. But Conan, I won't start with you because you have a bad opinion about Ghost of Tsushima. Griner, you've never played this game, obviously.
I have no opinion about Ghost of Tsushima, so how about that?
Okay, so I'll ask you, Lo. Do you have any interest in Ghost of Tsushima from what you've seen or heard about the game?
Not really. Big open. I only have so much room in my life for big open world experiences, and I don't think Ghost of Tsushima would be one of the ones that I would sit through.
You don't think like a really beautiful 30 to 40 hour experience with a great story and mind-blowing graphics is worthy to you?
Like 10 of those come out a year. Like I don't need Ghost of Tsushima in my life. I'm sorry. I had the opportunity to play it when you loaned me a PlayStation. I did not. And I was happy with that decision.
Well, I'll timestamp this for when it comes out on PC one day and you're like, I want to talk about Ghost of Tsushima.
Best so game good. Ever.
I didn't buy Death Stranding or Horizon either, so I don't think I'll be buying Ghost of Tsushima.
Don't compare Death Stranding to Ghost of Tsushima, but that's the thing. I think I don't know. I loved Ghost of Tsushima personally. I know some people out there have bad taste and they didn't like it. Conan, what were your thoughts on it?
It's real quick. Did you see that Kojima tweet where he talked about director's cuts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
After Death Stranding director's cut was announced.
Yeah. I think it's just. I feel this kind of fits in that thing. This is just kind of another name for a Game of the Year edition. I feel that's pretty much what this is. It's just here's the expansion and the work we did, and how about it? Look, Ghost of Tsushima looks beautiful, out of doubt. I cannot fault that. There's lots of times where I took photo mode and I was like, I'm going to give myself a sick red filter, and it's going to look like, or I'm going to make it look like Seven Samurai.
Yep.
But that's exactly what it's designed for. It's nice to look at. And as soon as you scratch the surface of that game, it's hollow. It's hollow like my heart after playing it. It's hollow like my parents' marriage. It's empty, man. It's a game. It's a game that very much, it has a lot of cool ideas and it's got a lot of ambition, but it's not filled out. Villages have nothing going for them outside of the fetch quests and stuff. It's like, what can you do? I can walk around and look at pretty scenery, and that wears thin after a while.
So,
in my humble opinion,
did you enjoy the characters or the story or anything?
No, Jin Sakai is a terrible character, and the story is atrocious. I'm sorry, but it's not good. It's so generic, and it's like he's a samurai, and he's like just all about honor. They kind of try to
about honor.
It is, because that's this whole thing, and it hints at the whole, you can't do these, you can't be a stealthy because you're an honorable guy. And he's like, but I have to. And I was like, oh, okay. And that's really the extent of it. It never delves into any of the crises of that or the philosophy of this or the failure of the samurai way. It's just, that is a throwaway moment at the beginning of the game. And very quickly it's like, no, you just killed those Mongols because they're bad, man.
I don't know. I agree that this shouldn't be called Director's Cut. I think it's a bit weird. I probably would have just preferred it be called Ghost of Ikishima, and just have it be like a expansion or whatever. Something that was kind of demanded by fans and stuff like that they are adding is they're making it sort of voice synced to the Japanese dubbed, which I remember when I started, I wanted to play it Japanese dubbed to have that more authentic feel, but the fact that it was lip synced to English ruined that for me, so I went the English route. And I enjoyed. No?
It ruined it, man.
Did you play in the Kurosawa mode, black and white?
No, I tried to I did when I was walking around sometimes, but I tried to in a battle and I couldn't see what the hell was going on because the wind's just super in my face, and because the color's gone, everything just looked a bit washed out. But it was really fun to walk around and explore, and the Kurosawa mode was great.
Yeah, true. Well, anyway, I liked it. Can
I ask you? Do you think that it had depth? Like when you went to villages and when you went to these other things, you were like, "There's a whole world to explore here." Did you really feel that?
Look, there's definitely open world games out there that, like you said, shallow as your parents' marriage. and like Breath of the Wild is one example, but like Ghost of
You just have to
Tsushima.
dig that game for no reason, honestly.
Ghost of Tsushima, I don't know. It had all the side characters I found really fascinating. Like the mentor, the archer mentor, the lady whose family were murdered. They're all really fascinating side characters who are brilliantly acted and performed that are memorable characters, I find. And most open world games don't have memorable side characters for them quests. And each of them have their own quest line where it's like they each have 10 quests assigned to that person's arc that goes over the 3 different map regions. And I enjoyed going through that. And I think that's depth there. Obviously, you go around to little towns and it's basically outposts for you to like take over the whole Ubisoft sort of way on the map. But I found the characters is like what gives that game its depth with its world that a lot of other games don't have. Now, I know Grana probably thinks like the Birdman in Breath of the Wild was really deep and meaningful, but you know, do you disagree, Conan, about the characters or?
Look, I mean, some of them were sort of interesting. Like the Archer was kind of compelling. Lady whatchamajigger, her family's killed. But even then, like the monk was really boring.
He seemed interesting at the start, but he got.
I think all of them have good ideas there. I think this game has a lot of really good ideas, but I think the 10 quests, I remember so many times I'd go do a quest one. I'm like, for like the Archer, I'm like, why the hell am I still looking for this girl? He's just like, oh, I heard she was over there. She's not here anymore.
Yeah.
That's busy work. That's just busy work. I think if they had really like trimmed it down, it would have been cool. And I don't like Jin. Jin is not
trimmed. It was 40 hours.
Make it 15.
Anyway, we'll move on. Griner didn't play it. I don't want to spoil it for him because it will be his game of the year next year when it's on PC. Conan, did you want to bring up your point about Vikings that you were going to bring up earlier?
Do you think you would have liked that game if it wasn't a PS5 like launch? If that just came out on PS4, do you reckon you really would have been a Valhalla fan?
No, probably not.
No.
If I'd given it the chance, I probably would have liked it. But given it was like the first Assassin's Creed game on next gen that I played, and being able to like put it on 60 frames per second mode completely changed that game for me. Like going back to it was weird. I've never been that person where 60 frames a second meant so much more than 30 frames. But Assassin's Creed really was. When I went into that, I was like, I'm going to play on fidelity mode, 4K, 30 frames a second. I was like, I'll see what 60 frames is like. Went into it and I was like, I can't go back to playing this game in 30 frames. Like it ran so good. It felt so good to run around that world. I turned off all the hit points and big health bars over people's things. I just wanted it to be a Viking thing that I ran through and raided villages and stuff like that. And it having that extra polish at PS5's launch is what I think won that game over for me, because I got it as the game to play for a week before Cyberpunk came out. And then after 10 hours of Cyberpunk, I went back to Valhalla and never played Cyberpunk again, got my refund and played the hell out of Valhalla. So, anyway, segueing, I don't know how, there was one earlier and I missed it. So there's this rumor going around about a partnership between PlayStation and Netflix. Now, there's not much to this rumor. It's sort of like a scraped screenshot of somewhere where our favorite protagonist, Jin Sakai, is sitting like on the Netflix screen, and it's like a PlayStation, like a game controller icon on the Netflix screen. Just have you guys read much about this or have any thoughts? A lot of people speculate this could be a way for PlayStation to have a kind of a competitor to Games Pass. If they could partner with Netflix, it would be massive, because, you know, Xbox can brag about it's like 5 million subscribers to Game Pass, but Netflix has like 500 million subscribers. And if they could somehow get some integration with them, it would be really impressive. But I don't know. There doesn't seem to be much depth to this. Griner, what's your thoughts?
From what I've seen, like as someone who develops websites and apps, it just reeks of, hey, the guy developing this was playing Ghost of Tsushima, so he took a screenshot from Ghost of Tsushima, used it as a placeholder, and that's where this story is like come from.
Yep.
But that's what this reeks of. But I agree, Sony has to do something, because Like Microsoft is absolutely eating their lunch in the games as a service market.
They are. They like Games Pass is an amazing like deal. Like, you can't like question its sort of value or anything like that compared to the $70 price tag or $100 here, $120 here in Australia games for next gen games, while Xbox is charging $9.99 a month and sometimes $1 for 3 months, which I subscribe to that, even though I don't have an Xbox at the moment. I was like, if I do, I need to get that deal now
Still
before it expires. Conan, what's your thoughts on this? You might not know too much about the rumor, but what are your thoughts if this was to be a thing?
Well, I mean, so it's pretty much confirmed Netflix is getting into games full stop.
That's where this rumor is sort of taking this screenshot and then going there, because Netflix does want to get into games.
Yeah, so I think so that's clear cut. It makes sense for them to try to partner with somebody and sort of have a way into it. I think, Granny, you're probably right. This seems way too if Netflix starting game, it's gonna start slow. Like what they got they hired a guy from Facebook, like who did a lot of like Facebook game design or something, or Facebook's VR game stuff. He's like one of the guys they brought in to lead this. So I think Netflix gaming is not going to be AAA Ghost of Tsushima streaming on Netflix. Like game streaming is still pretty, I think, way too early. Like the Stadia died in the ass for a reason. So I think Netflix is going to start off.
I was waiting for some.
I think Netflix is going to start off with like little gimmicky games like Bandersnatch, like story mode on different things like
Telltale games. Telltale games are perfect for Netflix sort of
stuff. Exactly. Stuff like that. So like joining forces with Sony and being like, hey, can we get your back catalog of massive titles is a long way off. Like a long, long way off. They might be with them to be like, hey, can you guys give us advice and sort of help us figure out a direction to go?
But like, this is the thing. Like, there's a little more to the rumor where PlayStation recently removed all of its sort of PlayStation video services from PlayStation 4 and PS5. Like, you could rent and buy movies through PlayStation. I, for some reason, had a whole season of Game of Thrones on there, apparently. But they removed that, which is like sort of lended credence to this whole thing about Netflix and PlayStation having a partnership. There is room for games that would work with this. Like you were saying, like Minecraft story mode is on there. Like my son played it and I was like, what are you doing? And he's like making the decisions. There's an interactive Bear Grylls show where you can choose if he tries to fight the bear or climbs down a cliff.
If he drinks urine or...
I was going to say choose to drink your own piss on it.
Yeah. I haven't played it yet, but that looks fun. But that sort of stuff, that adventure point and click sort of thing can work. But I don't know if it's like a thing that PlayStation will start doing these things. They had a game, Hidden Agenda, that came out about 2 years ago, which sort of did this whole, they're testing out this whole new thing about like using a mobile app to have everyone in the room make different choices, like an Until Dawn situation where, oh, no, I want to turn left here. I want to turn right here. And it was a FMV, like real life people acting out the scenes where people could choose which way to go. And PlayStation seemed to be really getting into that and then just abandoned that. That they could be developing stuff for Netflix with that, and that could be the thing. But obviously that's not an answer to Games Pass at all, because that's not what people want that product for, you know? Griner.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any evidence that it's like a streaming service. Like it could be just a rental. You download it to your PlayStation and have it for as long as you have the subscription. Who knows what it's going to be? But this is all nonsense. This is all rumor.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of rumors and nonsense, the abandoned Silent Hills Kojima PT thing. I've got my tinfoil here, ready to discuss this.
Get it on.
Basically, I'll start it with the first thing. Is this real? Do you guys believe this is actually a Kojima hoax and all that? And then I'll go through some of the evidence to change your mind if you don't, or reaffirm your mind if you do believe that. Conan, I'll start with you.
No, like I originally I want to believe it. I'm Mulder. I'm Fox Mulder here. This is the X-Files. I want to believe in them all. But there's always just this voice of Scully in the background who's like, nah, it's not happening. And I think that's it. Like originally it seemed kind of compelling. There was a lot of little things, but it just seems kind of dead in the water. I don't think it is, unfortunately.
Griner.
Yeah, I mean, it was all awfully suspicious for a long time there, but like I feel like at this point, it's just a bad developer who didn't understand how to handle some rumor and hype, and a few other people that are playing into it, and that's about it.
Okay, so this all started in April. PlayStation blog, there's an article about this indie game called Abandoned. Now, PlayStation blog isn't something that updates every day. It's like maybe once a week they'll update it, and they don't do it for small indie games. There's 50 games that come out on the PlayStation Store every single week. They don't have a PlayStation blog article about it. That's space that's left for bigger games or something that there's a partnership there with PlayStation. So for this unknown studio, Blue Box Game Studios, and an unknown developer that apparently nobody in the world knows this person, Hassan Karaman, to have his game shown on here just randomly one day, which is described obviously as this like cinematic survival horror game with this weird trailer announcement where it's just someone walking through a forest with some narration over it and everything like that. It's weird. It's like it's not something that would happen usually without some sort of something behind it for PlayStation to believe that. Now, obviously, the trailer they use seems to be like an asset flip from Unreal Engine. Apparently, like there's not much to it, which sort of leads like the whole thing about it being an indie developer who hasn't really done much in the past or anything like that. Obviously, then the tweet that started it all. So people were commenting on the Abandoned trailer and being like, "Oh, is this Silent Hills? Is this PT? Is this Kojima?" Then the tweet that really started the whole conspiracy theory was a tweet from Blue Box Game Studios, where they said, "Abandoned equals like guess the name. First letter S, last letter L, like two different words." With already people speculating that it was going to be Silent Hill, there's like no one else assumes any other thing else. Like you say that about a horror game, people assume it's Silent Hill. So there's that tweet.
So hasn't it come out that it was survival though? The answer was supposed to be survival.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
I didn't see that. I don't know. That's silly though. Like I don't know.
Said, the whole thing is like sus as, but I don't know.
What this reeks of to me is like this. What's his name? Karaman.
Hassan Karaman.
Hassan Karaman. It just reeks to me like he, for whatever reason, knows Kojima or is friends with Kojima or they've met up and discussed games. And Kojima's been like, "Do you know what would be funny if I just like trolled everybody?" Like literally, because he's a troll. He's done this. He did this with Metal Gear. He made a fake studio. So this has got his MO all over it.
Yeah.
And it really just feels to me, he's like, "Hey, do you not be a great like viral marketing tactic for this indie game that no one's going to play without help if we make people think it's this thing?" But everyone's talking about it now.
But this is the thing. Either it's Silent Hills and it's Kojima, or this poor indie developer is going to cop so much flack. Yeah, more people might play it, but people are going to be pissed if this isn't what people now build. And they're playing into it. Like, they are playing into it. They keep backtracking, being like, "We have no relation to Kojima or Konami or anything like that. It's not Silent Hills." But Kojima said similar things about Metal Gear Solid. He said this is Metal Gear Solid 5 about Phantom Pain. This is Joachim Margram and making like Moby Dick Studios. This isn't Konami or anything like that. He lies all the time. He's a showman. Like he likes doing this. And speaking of showman, Jeff Keighley is a showman. And his video, have you guys watched his video where it was like a live Q&A on Twitter and someone asked him about Abandon and Hassan Karaman? His little smirk, like he can't stop smiling about it. He's like, "Oh yeah, Hassan messaged me a couple months back. I was like, 'Can I show you games? Like you can help me reveal my game, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be really interesting. Yeah. Look out for more information." And then he went on to Reset Era, posted a thing being like, "This isn't what you guys think. This is, Hassan messaged me. Here's the screenshots." But then that got pulled apart because people were like, "Okay, well, those screenshots, then the way Twitter dates their like messages you've received. He would have had to taken them screenshots months ago when he said he got these messages, about 10 minutes after he received these messages from an indie developer that had made nothing. And he took a screenshot and held onto it for all these months to then post. Unless it was like, hey, shoot me a message now and we'll play it off as this thing. He works with like they're BFFs for life, Kojima and Keighley. And I think Keighley's whole sheepish thing about this whole game is what really sells it for me. We're not even talking about the fact that Karaman translates to Hideo. Like when you get into it, there is way too many coincidences. Like
some of them are like, he had a channel called 2727. Silent Hills was cancelled on April 27. That's not a clue.
No, Grono.
So I was just going to say, like, some of the coincidences are the same coincidences that people use to say that Bill Gates puts microchips in vaccines. Like,
he does.
People can convince themselves of anything given enough of a push, and like they're definitely playing into it. But
yeah.
Like Jason Schreier isn't a showman, and he has come out and said, "No, I've interviewed Hassan. This is not what you think it is." Yeah,
no, he hasn't.
Pretty sure he has.
No, Jason Schreier is the one that was tweeting, and he was like, "This is crazy. Something weird is going on."
Yeah, he was super into it.
But look, okay, Hassan Karaman, if this is true, like he's had a PlayStation profile for over 10 years. This is a long con from Kojima. Obviously there's the hostage videos, which we can get into him being filmed.
Those videos are really strange.
They're so weird.
Kojima's 100% there, like Joker-esque from Dark Knight, telling him what to say with a gun on him. But like he's like, there's the whole thing that he has a game in his games played list that you can check on PSN profiles and on PlayStation called Siren Head, which this game doesn't exist. Like it's not a game. Like it's in his
Silent
games,
Hill.
It's in his like games played list, and it's got like this picture of Siren Head, which is sort of like a Slender Man internet meme, like horror creature. Which there's some artist, I've forgotten his name now. I should have wrote it down. That has said that like he's a famous horror artist, and he said that Siren Head is one of like his favorite looking creatures, like in horror. And also that month talked about how Kojima had reached out to him about this interesting project he wanted to work on, and then backtracked on that and was like, no, I'm not working with Kojima or anything like that. Like, ignore what I said about working with Kojima. When people started to be like, well, there's this Siren Head game that doesn't exist that's on this dude's profile from way back when. There was at one point the Hassan Karaman's trophies equaled something from Silent Hills as well.
Of course they did.
The fact that they developed some app on like a personal training app on like the iPhone years and years ago, and in the description on that it's like personal trainer PT in like brackets. It's like there's so many little things. Blue Box Game Studios being like a play on the PlayStation Studios box. That's like
that whole thing is like the biggest stretch ever.
It's a bit of a stretch, but I don't know, like the fact that Kojima and Konami around this whole rumor followed each other on Twitter again after all their legal dispute and hatred and not communication for years. They followed each other on Twitter again. Kojima Productions liked Hassan, like Blue Box Games' tweet about it not being Silent Hills related. And then as soon as people called out that they liked it, they unliked the tweet. I don't know. There's a lot of weird info in there. I 100% am on board. Like I know, I feel like I'm like guy in the meme, just pointing at all the red lines on the board.
Yeah,
trying to find the Zodiac killer or whatever. But the fact that like there's this app now, this is the silver bullet for me. Like there's this app to reveal, like to show the trailer in live time, that everyone who downloads this app either on the PlayStation or on their phone is going to see the trailer for this indie game that no one's heard of from this developer that's no one's heard of, and people can say they talk to Hassan on the phone. There's not a single developer out there that's come out and been like, I know Hassan Karaman. Like, I don't think he's a CGI person or anything like that. I believe he's probably just some developer that works for Kojima And Kojima's like, hey, I think you're attractive. Let me make you my new project. Because Kojima's a bit strange like that. And the app thing's strange to me. The app thing, like, they don't do this for any other game.
It's like this new PlayStation feature, and it's being released with this indie game. It is weird. It's weird. But why did they say they were going to release the trailer or whatever a month ago, and then like, no, we have to delay it to September? Like, what was that? Like,
they delayed it 3 days from Tuesday
Yeah.
to Friday, and then delayed it, I think, till mid-August. Like,
how does a delay go from 3 days to 2 months? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
I know, and that seems like, oh, it's an indie dev that's like, oh
Over
crap,
their head.
what's going on? This is just an asset flip. I'm not ready for this sort of stuff. But why then would he think that it's ready by Tuesday and then push it to Friday and then push it a month and a half? Unless it's just, I don't know. Kojima's weird with this whole thing. And like Moby Dick Studios, man, he showed up in prosthetic masks with bandages, did interviews. Like the amount of speculation that went into Moby Dick Studios before it was revealed to be Metal Gear Solid, like the fact that the logo was like the whale's tail, and people like transposed that over and realized it was Kojima's hairline. Actually, like it was way so much stuff into it. But I personally believe this has to be Silent Hills related. This screams Kojima to me, and if not, I feel bad for this developer because they're never going to live this down, and he's in way over his head. Poor Hassan Karaman, and I don't know.
I think what's more likely though is like this is just like an ARG. Like that seems like something that Kojima would be big into. He's like, guys, we're playing my next game, but here's this thing that he worked on that I helped. Like that seems like a weird theatrical thing he would do.
100%.
Like that makes a lot more sense. Like there's all these vague clues that there's just enough of a breadcrumb there to keep people hooked. Like I feel like that makes more sense. I hope it's Silent Hills, but I also like the idea that we're all playing Silent Hill.
Kojima's been wanting to do a horror game for years and years. He's been talking about this and talking about how taboo it will be and like all this, like it'll be so weird you won't even realize you're playing it. Maybe we are. Maybe it is.
I'm gonna find some clues for that.
But I don't know. There was the Kojima tweet where he talked about two authors and these two books he's reading that have the word silent in one sentence and then Hill in another. Like, oh, it's by David Hill. The book Silent such and such. And the fact that Konami came out of the woodwork all of a sudden after years in isolation and we're like, hey, Silent Hill merch dropping this week. I don't know if there was just them capitalizing on all this new speculation about Silent Hill. It ended up just being skateboards and t-shirts that they released. But the fact that that's going on, they're following each other on Twitter again. It screams Kojima, and I'm all in on this. And I think I'll be blown away if it's not Kojima. And we'll know in a month. When this trailer's
delayed again for 3 months because of it's not
make
ready.
Make sure you download the trailers app so we'll all sit there at our separate jobs in live time, real time, watch it be revealed to be Silent Hills. We'll do a live reacts to it or something. But Grana, any final thoughts on this whole conspiracy theory? You don't believe it? You don't believe it is?
I want to believe, but I feel like it's. I feel like if on the 22nd of June or whatever date it was when it was supposed to be released, that was when it had to happen. If it hasn't happened, it's not happening.
I know it was pretty. Like I think you and I were chatting that night. Like we were waiting for it at midnight to drop, and then it got delayed when it was meant to launch. He was like, "It's not ready yet." And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of a kick in the nuts." Conan, you're in the same boat. You want to believe, but you can't bring yourself to do it.
I really hope we get Kojima Silent Hill, but we're just not going to. I don't think.
I hope so. There's a lot. Like there's a Reddit thread by Aid This Fellow user on the Gaming Leaks and Rumors Reddit that it's worth going through and having a look. There's a lot of weird stuff. Like obviously there's no saved trademarks under Blue Box Game Studios. But in the trailer they mentioned like it's trademarked, but it's not, unless obviously it's trademarked under a different name under Konami, Kojima. But if at the end of this, it's a PS5 exclusive, that's already confirmed. If it's a Silent Hill PlayStation 5 exclusive. That'll be a massive get for Sony, I think, and will blow people's minds.
I feel like the only people that would care about that are people who would have a PlayStation anyway.
Which is a lot of people. There's a lot of people.
Yeah, but it's not. They're not bringing any new users in, right? Like,
I think there's Silent Hill. There's a lot of Silent Hills fans out there. Silent Hill fans. It's a popular franchise. Amazing movies,
but
apparently.
I feel like they mostly would already be going for Sony. That's cool.
True. Before we get into our main topic for the show, which will be Switch OLED and the Steam Deck, not the Stream Deck. We'll get into that another time. Griner, do you have any other news stories that piqued your interest?
Just a couple real quick ones. Do you guys know what a graphics card is?
The PlayStation 5 is the best one in the world. I remember a developer saying, but
sure. So graphics cards, obviously the powerhouse of graphics on your PC. They've been in scarce supply ever since the cryptocurrencies have been just surging ahead because they're used to mine cryptocurrencies. And a beta for open worlds. I don't know is it open world, new world? Oh, where's my article? It just came out and it's bricking people's 3090s, which are like the top end graphics cards, which is kind of scary. Like permanently destroying these graphics cards is kind of fascinating. It's fascinating to me because it's one of those things where, like I don't know, you just never expect it. Like, sure, it can crash your computer, but you never expect it to actually destroy a piece of hardware so that your computer won't work anymore.
Which,
you know how that's
is expensive as well.
Well, it's a very expensive graphics card, yeah.
Like, how is that happening? What's causing that?
It's a heat issue, which generally these things are, and it looks like something in New World is basically they don't cap the frame rate, so the frames can just go as fast as they want. So it's thousands of frames per second in menus or something like that, and it's just driving the heat right up that it's popping capacitors and destroying the hardware.
It finally happened, Conan. The PC fanboys and their frame rates have destroyed themselves.
I knew it'd get too big eventually.
Yeah.
They're like thousands of frames in our menus. Oh God, it's too much power.
It's like looking at the sun for too long, right?
Yeah,
it's so beautiful.
So many frames.
This is coming from the guy who earlier said, "I can't play in 30 frames per second anymore." Years defending it is his only option.
Conan, let's bring an old argument. Last of Us, that was better in 30 frames, wasn't it?
You can't play the original Last of Us in anymore. It looks like garbage.
It's more cinematic and more gritty to play it in 30 frames a second.
Look, that's an interesting conversation to have one day about the physiology of frame rates on the human eye. But
so Griner, this is it just the 3090s that it's destroying? It's
actually just the EVGA 3090s. So it's a specific brand of 3090. Looks like they have a fault. It looks like it might be a fault in that graphics card that's brought out by what's happening in New World. But it's just an interesting interaction between a game and a piece of hardware.
So what's the New World? Is it like it's not like a graphic intensive game or anything?
I mean, I think it is. It's a beta, so it's not finished. So usually they don't run as well. I think from memory, New World is like. Have you ever seen? I don't know. It's just like a Viking MMO or some shit. I don't know.
Look, it's jam.
Oh, sounds interesting. That's not good at all. And so it looks like there's a few videos out of people like streamers and stuff reacting to it happening or something. That could be. Oh man, that would suck. How much of the RTX 3090s? They're pretty expensive, aren't they? Because I know they were out of stock.
I think they're like $3,000 or something like that. And but the other thing is you can't even get them. Yeah, so $3,600 I could order. That's the cheapest one I can find in Australia.
You could get 5 PS5s for that.
If you could find them, it's the same problem.
I'll just get anything anyway.
Yeah, wow. No, that's
tangent. Can you explain to me why Bitcoin farming needs graphic cards?
I was going to say, Griner, explain farming to us and mining.
I know how mining works, but I don't know why these graphics cards specifically.
Well, I mean, it's Look, I don't know. I'm not an expert on it. All I know is that the way that the way that there's complex mathematical things that need to be done in order to mine Bitcoin, in order to process transactions on the Bitcoin blockchain, and GPUs are generally better at that than CPUs, which is your normal processor in the computer.
So
Words.
where did I see somewhere? I remember that there was like they found like a warehouse that was just like PS4s or PS4 Pros all lined up like in a row. That was the thing, wasn't it? About people using that to mine or something.
They thought they were mining Bitcoin. They were actually, it was a FIFA scam, I think.
Yeah, I saw something about FIFA. It was something about the FIFA like packs or something like that.
Yeah, it was some FIFA scam. Anyway, it was interesting.
Man,
That's hilarious.
It's getting weird out there. People can't find consoles, and people are using it to mine.
Well, that's why we can't find them.
Digital
We
currency.
can't have nice things.
Exactly. But, well, any other news, Grana, that you've found interesting this week?
Only quickly, Neil Blomkamp, who I have an abusive relationship with, he keeps doing me dirty, but I keep going back to him. He's joining a game studio to what studio is it?
Naughty Dog.
Gunzilla Games, to be chief visionary officer. So I don't know, could be like George R.R. Martin and his involvement in Elden Ring. I'm not sure, but I don't know.
Sure.
I'm interested in anything Neil Blomkamp does, even though most of the time it's not what I wish it was. It's not as good as I wish it was.
Is there is there any speculation on what this game is, like genre-wise?
It's a multiplayer shooter.
Oh, that's kind of disappointing.
Who knows? I don't know. I just thought it was interesting because I like Neil Blomkamp.
Conan,
Well, sometimes.
He's always been the kind of guy you can see getting into video games. All of his movies are very video gamey. Like Elysium feels like the Halo movie he never made.
Yeah. And he used footage from Halo in some of his short movies at the start.
Yeah. So I think like this is peanut butter and chocolate coming together. Maybe.
Grana, I want to delve into this abusive relationship just a little bit before we move on. How has he done you dirty? What specifically?
I really liked District 9. I was hoping for a sequel, which we may still get. Fingers crossed, but Chappie was fine. Elysium was fine, I guess. Not great.
They're movies that I watched.
Studio stuff is interesting.
I don't remember. Like it's like they're very unmemorable, I found. But
yeah.
I
liked District 9. I watched it at the cinema and then bought it on Blu-ray when it came out. I really enjoyed that.
It's a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
Yes. There's a reason why he keeps getting to make films.
Yeah.
But District 10 I think is happening. He's got an idea for it, and it very much seems like it's in the works. Like even like there was something came out, Shelter Copley was confirmed to be coming back. So
I mean, does that guy work for anyone else?
I swear I only hear his name when it's like a new District 9 movie or something.
He was in the AT movie, wasn't he?
No, he was in
Hardcore
Henry, which was a very good movie, actually.
Was that the FPS? Like the
all first person.
Oh, see,
Is
I
it
never
actually
watched
good?
that.
It was actually it's really entertaining. It's pretty it's just super exciting. It's worth seeing. Now, who made that actually?
Speaking of exciting things that nobody's going to play, this Stream Deck. Oh no, Steam Deck. Whoops, my bad. Was announced the same day as the Stream Deck by Elgato, but I think they're a bit annoyed that Valve has come out and announced this. Griner, I'll get your thoughts first on this. Obviously, this came out about 2 or 3 days after the Switch OLED was announced, which we'll also get into, but kind of like a perfect time to announce this, where everyone was like, well, the Switch OLED isn't the Switch Pro that I was wanting. Like, it's not a powerful handheld. And then they're like, boom, here we are, a portable PC. You are the PC guy here. Do you know much about the specs? Is this like an actual bit, like a decent PC?
Yeah, it looks fine. It looks fine. So people, like a few of the things I looked at, people were comparing it to the Xbox Series S. It's still not that, like it's not that good, but I mean, you're playing on a small screen at like 720p or whatever. And it looks like you'll be able to play new, like the thing with PC gaming is some games, AAA games, run beautifully because they're optimized well. Other ones just don't. And because they're optimized poorly, no matter how good your system is, they still don't run how you want them to. And that's going to be the same on this. There's going to be really good, pretty games that are optimized really well and will look good on this. And there'll be games that look bad. But the specs aren't anything. They're not like super amazing. They're obviously better than the Switch. And I think the real power of this is that it's a PC. So you can,
It's game
it has
library.
access. Yeah, like the Steam store is probably the biggest game library in the world, and they have really good sales. They have access to like thousands of really, really good indie games that I think will run really well on this machine. I think that's what it'd be really good for. But then you can also still install the Epic Store. You can still install good old games. Like there's other storefronts you can install as well, have access to that whole library. And that's what makes it compelling to me. I'm not the person this is for, but
it seems like
cool.
A lot of people seem to say like if you were going to get like a laptop for gaming, if like you were just going to cheap out and get a sort of, you'd probably be better to go this sort of route and get this instead of
for the price too. The price is excellent, like $350 or something like that. Like that's like outstanding for something that'll play decent
550
PC games.
Australian dollars. Obviously, they've announced 3 sort of SKUs, like 3 models for this, with the only difference being there's better like anti-scratch glass on the more expensive models, but bigger storage on it, which
faster storage on the more expensive ones as well.
Yeah, which I think you would have to do with these because they're Steam games. So it's like the screenshot on it though, they have like Control, Doom Eternal, and some other game, and someone did a comparison. They're like, well, they actually won't fit on the 68 gig model. Like those
depends on what you want it for. If you want to play indie games, like if this is your Stardew Valley machine, like you'll fit 1,000 indie games on there. It's no problem.
Conan, you're one of the only people on the planet who hasn't bought a Switch yet.
Pretty much.
Steering the Switch OLED, did that get your attention at all, or was it just another Switch?
Is anyone excited about the Switch OLED? It's really not exciting.
I like the white Joy-Cons, but that's it. I have a Switch OLED. I have an OLED TV, so I just dock my Switch and it's a Switch OLED. That's
what I mean. I feel like this is such a weird sort of thing to worry about. Because it's got a new screen, slightly improved sound quality,
an Ethernet port,
a bit more storage.
It has an Ethernet port and a kickstand.
Wacky friggin' do.
It's Nintendo. The Switch OLED is just Nintendo, has Nintendo written all over it.
This is Malibu Stacy with a new hat.
It is. It is. That meme, it's never been such an accurate representation of the Switch. They're like, it's got an Ethernet port or a little kickstand now that can go at a 90-degree angle.
I see. I feel kind of silly. It's like we're waiting for the Pro, and then it's like we're not going to give you that yet, but we'll give you the OLED. It's like that's a really crappy like filler until we get the Pro. I think
they've pretty much come out and said there's not going to be a Pro though. Like there will be a new Switch, a Switch 2 or whatever.
Yeah,
which worse.
Like I don't know. It's the fact that this is the same price basically as a next gen console. And it's not a next-gen console. It's still the same Switch that came out 4 years ago. Like I don't know. An OLED screen's nice. OLED's nice. The Vita did it first. But
bigger screen is nice too. Like if I was only playing this
not much
handheld,
bigger though, is it?
No, it makes
half
a
an
difference
inch
though. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can do with half an inch, I'll tell you what.
I was waiting for it.
I don't know. Like if I was playing only in handheld mode and I didn't own a Switch, it might be interesting. But like, did you see the report? This is costing them all of $10 more to produce over the other Switch. That's all it's costing them on the back end.
Crap.
And they're selling it for about an extra $100.
Yeah.
So this is Nintendo doing the worst thing they do. They're just like, we're going to sell you the same product. Like that's like I said, 4 years old. Just we're going to double the price though.
And they're like, it comes out the same day as Metroid Dread to really get that OLED action going.
Yeah.
So, Conan, the Steam Deck, does that intrigue you at all then?
I think it's interesting. I think it's I was reading a bit about it, like comparing this to all sort of Valve's other ventures they did. Like they had the was it the Steam box they had?
Yeah, so they had the
Like-
Steam boxes, which are like pre-built consoles, but running Steam.
Yeah. So they had that fail. Like they had that Steam controller they made a lot, and that kind of failed. Like they've got sort of this long history of bundling stuff. But it seems like they're doing like a pretty clever thing with this. Like because from what I read, they're designing it themselves, so there's no sort of issue of like getting third parties in to mix it up and screw it up. They're putting it on Linux. But yeah, like you can put in, it's not just like, it's not only going to run Steam stuff. You can run other game stores. You can get all this different content. It's essentially just a small handheld computer. Like it seems like a good idea. I think it's really, I don't know exactly who it's for. I don't know who's really going to be buying this, but I think it's a cool idea. I think it's there's going to be a very small amount of people who are like, that's exactly what my needs are. I need the Steam Deck. It's not going to be a thing that, because the people who sort of want to get this are the people who have Steam libraries of 400 games and are like, if only I could play this on the train, or if only I could play this on holiday somewhere.
I think
like,
there's people
to grind,
like that,
to grind in stuff. Like a lot of people, obviously, I don't think people want to play like their really graphic intensive games, and the people who want like 2,000 frames in the menu of New World or anything like that aren't going to get this. And have this.
Guys.
It's going to blow up the subway. Like it's just they're going to, oh, too many frames. But definitely, I think, and Griner, you can probably speak on this, like games where there's grinding involved, like Diablo or whatever, or farming or anything like that. This would be good for like a commute for people who, go on trains or whatever, or have like a flight or anything like that are traveling. Apparently its battery life is 2 to 8 hours. So somewhere in there, depending on the game you're playing, I'm guessing. Like you can get 8 hours on indies or 2 hours with Doom Eternal.
If you're farming Bitcoin with it, not too long.
You have about 20 minutes. It's more than double the weight of the Switch. So it's a hefty.
It's a hefty boy by the sounds of things.
Hefty boy.
I feel like it's going to get real hot too. But anyway, we'll see.
Probably. But I don't know. It's kind of interesting. And I think, obviously Vita's dead. God rest its soul. But it's kind of an interesting point now that PlayStation are putting their games on PC like a year or two after release. Like there's the rumor of Bloodborne coming to like Steam. I mean,
geez, I hope not.
Handheld Bloodborne is appealing to a lot of people. Horizon Zero Dawn handheld, Death Stranding handheld, like that's what everybody wants for their delivery services. There's definitely there's a market for it, and I think.
Is it a big market though? Like honestly,
it's sold out. Like you can't get it now. Like the pre-orders are done, as far as I can tell.
But I mean, is that a combination of scalping and COVID?
Could be.
So apparently they've done a bunch of stuff to stop scalpers, and bots. Apparently you had to have had a Steam account and have made a Steam purchase before June 29th, 2021. Like it was something like current Steam users, so people can't just make a bunch of accounts or whatever at the last minute. You had to have had a Steam account to be able to pre-order this, which is really cool and a really cool way to do it and to stop bots doing it. I think it'll be popular. Obviously, it's not going to be Nintendo levels of popular or anything like that, or even PlayStation, Xbox. It's still going to be a niche market, but if it had mass market appeal, I think it would be really popular. Like in Conan, you had a bit of a stint with EB Games, and so did I. Like there are a lot of people and a lot of young kids wanting to get into PC gaming that can't really afford a $2,000 setup, and like do all this thing. And a $500 handheld, like it's the same price as what a Switch is, like a Switch OLED. And the games library is ridiculous on it. Like you can play pretty much anything, any multi-platform game you can play on there, which Switch doesn't have. Switch is like the Nintendo console with a few downgraded versions of stuff like Doom Eternal or anything like that. I don't know. If they market this right, and if they got like a marketing behind it, it could do really well, I feel like. But
it's Valve though. They won't market it at all, and they'll probably stop making. They'll probably stop making it in 2 years. But no one's at a loss for them giving up on it. Like the people who own it still own it. It will still work. Like the Steam controller, they don't make it anymore, but there's lots of people who own it who liked it. Like, I think Valve does abandon things, but I don't think anyone's hurt by it. Like, it'll still be supported by the Steam store. And like for me, if I was traveling a lot, like I have a huge Steam library that I haven't even touched. If I was a guy who was on the road, this would be a great way to get through my back catalog. Like, it's perfect for that.
Like that's what it's made for, right? It's made for people like that. I like the idea of a Switch that isn't a Switch. Like it's not a Nintendo specific thing. It's not, because obviously Nintendo has their shtick. They are family friendly. They have a market of they have a cut of the market, and they live there. They keep that to themselves. I like the idea of sort of having the hardware ideas and the philosophy of that, but with a PC, like with PC games.
Yeah. And obviously, a lot of complaints about the Switch. Obviously, it's died down over the years, but when it was first came out and people first got their hands on it, is the Joy-Cons, because the position and how small the buttons and the analog sticks are is because they're detachable, and so you can turn it sideways and still use it as a controller. These aren't detachable controllers, like it's just, for you to hold on to. So a lot of people who have gone hands-on with this say it's really good to hold, like it's got a good feel to it, and good triggers and everything like that. It's got the back paddles, which I've never seen the point of, but a lot of people,
some people
love them things. So growing up, do you want this? Like, is this something that piques your interest to potentially buy down the line, or no?
Like I said, it's not for me. Like, I'm not a guy who's on the road. I don't have a long commute.
Yeah.
Like, my handheld gaming is very limited. And if I wanted to play some Steam games at home on the lounge, I can do that easily without
like at the moment.
I can cast it to my TV and play in there. Like, there's lots of options for me for how I use my gaming library.
Do you not want to like lay in bed on a Saturday morning, just pull it out of the blanket and sit there and start playing Hades and just being like,
I mean, I could do that on the Switch if I really wanted to.
Oh, Hades is on the Switch,
and I
isn't
don't. So
yeah, that's a good point. Conan, is this something that would interest you to the point to buy it? You don't seem like a handheld person.
No, I don't use my hands for many things. I don't have a Steam library. Like, I'm not one of those people who has 500 games. I have like 15 games, and most of them are games I've already played that I was like, oh, I'd play that again one day. So 3. that's not really me. And yeah, like on my, I don't even play my I can't even remember what it's called. My 3DS. I barely even play my 3DS.
I thought you were about to be like my video game console, the Xbox or whatever it is. Like, do you have much time to play video games anymore?
No, yeah, I pretty much just, when I'm there, I read things. Like if I have a commute, I need that, I read. So that's kind of, my gaming is situated on the TV mostly, and I don't really need it to be handheld.
Yeah, true. And I mean, I think bottom line, the narrative I'm seeing around this whole Switch OLED versus Steam Deck thing is just get a PlayStation Vita. Like that's just the answer to everything. Play Persona 4 Golden.
Why a 10-year-old console that's no longer supported?
OLED
it's the PlayStation way.
OLED screen. Persona 4 Golden, one of the best handheld games of all time. Any final thoughts on the Steam Deck?
I think it's cool. It's not for me.
Not for you.
And we can't buy it in Australia anyway, so whatever.
Yeah. So
I hope this heralds Steam making stuff again. Like, I want to see them start making games again.
Like a Half-Life 3 or something like that.
They made Half-Life Alyx, but the thing everybody wants is Half-Life 3, and that would be, imagine if Half-Life 3 was a Steam Deck exclusive.
They would do it. They would do that. I mean, hell, they made Alex a VR exclusive game.
I don't think they have the balls to make Half-Life 3 an exclusive game on anything other than everywhere.
This is a bit of a tangent. Did you play Half-Life Alex? You wouldn't have. You don't have VR for your PC.
I don't have VR.
I'm interested in playing that. Like, it looks really good, and it got really great reviews.
It's pretty cool.
I love VR, so I'm keen to play that. Yeah, no, I'm not interested, but I think if I was leaning towards one, I'd get the Steam Deck over the Switch OLED. Like, Switch OLED's kind of a really disappointing thing. I was hoping for a Switch Pro, and I was hoping it'd be, like I said on our prediction show for E3, I wanted it to launch side by side with Breath of the Wild 2. Breath of the Wild 2 is next year, and just getting a little white Switch instead. The Switch dock looks nice. White. I do like that. Almost convinced me to pre-order it. Just
Yeah, I mean, we know your preference for aesthetics.
like minimalist setups everywhere. Well, that's all for the news this week. That's all for this episode of Bonus XP Podcast. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Thanks for all the feedback on the Last of Us one, especially you, Crazy Cletus II. We got to deal with this lot of tropes guy over here all the time.
Appreciate you.
It's good to get that sort of feedback every now and again.
I didn't even use the word trope once in this episode, so
No,
I just ruined it.
You had it on you had it on your screen. Don't say it. Don't say it. No, but appreciate it. Like and subscribe. Follow us on all social media channels. At I always got to say Good Bad Worst Pod, which is our other podcast, but at Bonus XP Podcast. You can also catch our other podcast where we review and rank movie trilogies and decide which one was the worst, why it was the worst. Coming out next week is John Wick trilogy, which was a fun discussion, and after that will be the Thor trilogy as well. So some good
come
chat.
listen to us gush about Keanu for 50 minutes.
Yep, and then Chris Hemsworth next week, so should be good.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks for that. I'm Luke. That's Conan. That's Griner. And we'll see you next time.